In this week's video, we're going to be taking a look at a new commander, Elenda, Saint of Dusk, which was released in Foundations and is definitely a cool variant of Elenda, which is already a pretty popular commander. So let's jump into the video and take a look. Alright everybody, thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate each and every one of you guys taking the time to watch the videos. If you do enjoy what you see, please hit that like button and subscribe. Click that bell icon if you want to be notified when new videos are posted. And as always, I do thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Now, it is not Tuesday. I got a little bit behind, so I do apologize for that. But we are posting a new deck profile video. We post them typically every Tuesday with some exceptions. And this week, I'm talking about Elenda, Saint of Dusk. And this card's actually interested me quite a lot ever since it came out in Foundations. And I wanted to build something for it. I just wasn't really sure how to make it work. And even then, with what I'm working with here, I'm not 100% sold on this being like any type of final product. I definitely think there are ways you could build on and improve this deck and or make it more budget friendly or upgraded. This version that we're working with at like lowest price is around like $650 because of a couple of cards I'll touch on. You could definitely take those cards out and replace them with some other stuff to save a significant bit of money on the deck. That being said, there are also cards I did not include you could add that will make a big difference in terms of that if budget is not something you're worried about there. Now, Elenda herself is really cool, and we'll start off there. So it has lifelink and hexproof from instants, meaning it can't be Swords to Plowshare, Path to Exile, anything like that. As long as your life total is greater than your starting, Elenda gets +1/+1 and has Menace. Elenda gets an additional +5/+5 as long as your life total is at least 10 greater than your starting life total. So, if you do have 10 or more than your starting total, this is going to be a 10-10 with Menace, Lifelink, and Hexproof from instants. You can kind of see where that can become a problem very quickly, which of course is, good and bad when you're playing the deck, because if it starts to pop off too soon, you're going to get checked and balanced by the rest of the table, or if it takes too long, you're not quite going to get there. But if we can get that sweet spot and really kind of get the deck to work, let's say be able to get Elenda going without just being popped, 85% of the time, you should be in a good position to contend for victory. So it's 4 mana to play, 2, 1 white, 1 black, not bad. It's a vampire, so obviously we've got some vampire synergies in here as well. But let's go through the deck, and as always, I'm gonna, I'll expand on a few cards that might be a bit more detailed and just kind of, gloss over some others. So Angel of Destiny is a cool card. This is more of a win more in my opinion, but it has flying, double strike. When a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each gain that much life. At the beginning of your end step, if you have at least 15 more life than your starting total, each player that Angel of Destiny attacked this turn loses the game. So it is an alternate win condition. You can essentially like swing at an opponent with this. If this has lifelink or you have other things with lifelink, you're able to boost your life total up pretty quick. Obviously, this does have pseudo lifelink in the sense that it gives you life, but it also gives your opponent life. But, just swinging with this and Elenda, if one of them is buffed up, you can get that 15 life. And then obviously it's just a cool card to have access to, and can be a nice pusher, especially early game, to get some advantage and maybe get someone out of the pod. But be aware, I don't think it's a card that's going to live all that long either, just because of what it can do. Angel of Vitality, just solid. If you gain life, you get that much +1, and it gets +2/+2 if you have 25 or more life. So in Commander, this is already going to be a 4/4 with flying, and then you get the life buff. Archangel of Thune is definitely one that is on the pricier side, and one that I would say, you probably could exclude if you were working with a budget. It's 3 and 2 white flying lifelink. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So it's extremely good at buffing up your board very fast, so there's absolutely a reason to include it. It's just that it's kind of, on the higher side of price. Again, though, if you do have it or have the ability to get it, I think it's worth the investment in terms of some of the pricier cards here. But obviously everyone's going to have their own take on it. Baron Bertram Greywater, pretty good here. Whenever you make tokens, you create a vampire rogue token with lifelink. You can also sack an artifact or creature to draw a card. Just a solid card across the board. Blood Artist, you guys know what that does. Good life gain. Cat Collector, another new card from Foundations. When it enters, you get a food token. Whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, you get a 1/1 white cat. Extra token generation, stuff to sack off if we need it. Plus food token's going to give us life. Just all across the board, really solid. Cruel Celebrant is very similar to Blood Artist, but not as good, because obviously it has to be if your creature or planeswalker dies, not any creature, but again, no reason not to include it. We've got Daxos in here, and this one, just whenever another creature you control enters battlefield or dies, you gain a life. More solid life gain. Dazzling Angel's the same thing. When one enters, you gain life. At least early in the game, if you start racking up life gain, you can survive some hits more likely until you can get to where you need to go. Ellis Core is the same type of thing, although this one also burns the opponent when one of your creatures dies, so it's pretty strong. Elenda the Dusk arguably one of the best cards in the deck and just a good commander card in general. Lifelink, when it dies, when another creature dies, it gets a counter, and then when it dies, you get X/1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink. So if you start to kind of spam this with a lot and you're able to load it up with counters, you're getting a bunch of low-cost tokens that can deal damage and heal you at the same time. Elenda's Hierophant is really good too. This is only in the Lost Caverns of Ixalan commander decks. I did not realize that. It is flying. Whenever you gain life, you get a +1/+1 counter on it, and then when it dies, you create X/1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink, where X is its power. This is just a extremely strong card, realistically, that does so many things, and that life gain is not a once per turn, so you can just keep stacking counters, and then when it dies, you're getting a bunch of them if you have it strong enough. Just an extremely good card here. Enduring Tenacity, solid, just it can be part of that infinite loop burn, you gain life, opponent loses life, with cards like Marauding Blight Priest, so you have that going. Essence Channeler, just another good card here. Exemplar of Light, same thing. We're just playing some stronger cards that get benefits off of life gain, but also help with resources. Of course, Gary, the Grey Merchant of Asphodel. This card's really annoying, but it's really strong, and obviously it will definitely be able to do some damage here, as well as giving you life gain. I do find the card a little cheesy, but I think it's actually really important to play here. Guide of Souls, you guys are probably familiar with that. It's really good. Hinterland Sanctifier, another card just in that same vein. 1-drop that's going to give you some life gain resources. We've got Combo, the Console of Allocation. Whenever a opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. This card's going to be really annoying. It's probably not going to last too long around the table, just because it's going to put a lot of pressure on the opponents. But it can definitely get you some benefits while it's out, and at the best, it's forcing them to waste a resource. So you got that going for it. Karlov of the Ghost Council. This is another card that's just solid, that gets counters when you gain life, and then you can remove the counters to exile a target creature. So nice to have some removal options, and it's not too high in mana investment either to bring that out, so it's just another good option. Kutzel, is it Kutzel? Kutzel? I don't know. Someone's going to call me out in the comments because of my pronunciation anyhow. So 2 and a white, creature cat warrior with flash. When it enters, either choose one of the following. You either get a counter for each creature that left the battlefield, you gain 2 life and scry 2, or exile target player's graveyard. Quick life gain to trigger effects is solid, and the flexibility of getting rid of a problematic graveyard can be nice as well. Marauding Blight Priest, whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So, again, part of some loops that we'll talk about here in just a minute. But yeah, it's basically just an extremely good card here, with especially cards like, Exquisite Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood. Whenever they lose life, you gain that much life. So if you're not familiar, you have Exquisite Blood and Bond out. That's an instant win if you trigger any life gain, because you keep gaining and pinging the opponent. It just goes back and forth. Marauding Blight Priest is just another way to do that with Exquisite Blood. So there's, again, no reason not to utilize it there. Resplendent Angel is another solid card here. Rock's Faithbender, doubles any life that you gain. Pretty good. Rodolph Duskbringer from the new Jumpstart is also just a solid card with a lot of effects, especially if you can reanimate it and stuff. It allows you to bring things back based on your life gain. It also has a bunch of keywords going for it, so just a solid card. Sorin of House Markov, again, pretty good in various facets, and the backside of it too, with food token and then dealing damage equal to the life you gained. This could stack real quick, real fast, and do some extra damage to the opponent, so it's a good card. Soul Warden and Soul's Attendant are both, the best versions of themselves, quote unquote, because it's whenever a creature enters in general. So it's not just your opponent's battlefield, obviously pretty good. Starscape Cleric, whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. Just another kind of variant of Marauding Right. The more of these you have, the more damage you're doing. Suture Priest, and then we've got Vengeful Blood Witch. Blood Artist, not quite as good, but still another nice, poker here. And then Veto, Thorn of the Dusk Rose, whenever you gain life, each opponent loses that much life. So, anytime you're gaining, opponents are losing that. And then if you have stuff like Exquisite Blood out, you're then gaining it back. It's just all really annoying, ping, life drained type stuff. And then Welcoming Vampire is just solid here. Being a vampire, also being able to give you some extra draw power. Enduring Innocence is probably a good option as well. Just kind of went with this one here because it's just thematically, and it's flying, and it costs 1 less. So moving on to the sorceries, we've got Blasphemous Edict. I do think this is the best board wipe for black, period. That's not to say Damnation is not good. I just think Blasphemous Edict has a lot more flexibility. Obviously, I'm playing both in here, along with Wrath of God, because you want to be able to answer problems, and a lot of your stuff have death triggers, so you can kind of play around that to make it work to your benefit a little. If Damnation's too pricey and a little bit out of your budget, then you could always swap it with a card like Damn. That works just as well and is like a quarter of the price. Demonic Tutor, obviously an insanely good card here. Again, kind of on the pricey side. There are certainly some lower budget tutor options if you don't want to play that. Exsanguinate is just really good. Fumigate is awesome. It's a new card from Foundations. It's a Wrath of God, but it costs one more, but you gain a life for each creature destroyed. So if you use it as a board wipe to kind of save yourself, you get some extra padding from it. It's just a pretty good card in general. Night's Whisper, good for draw power, and losing 2 life isn't a huge deal when we have so much life gain. Reanimate, I play this in anything with black, realistically speaking. It's just way too good, especially when you have some higher cost creatures. Same with Sabine's Reclamation. Like, if you can play it, there's no reason not to. It does a lot, and this just brings back permanence in general. We've got Sign in Blood as well, just, a little bit more draw power. On the instance, Dark Ritual, just kind of a must-play, in my opinion. Deadly Rollick is incredibly good. Again, on the pricier side, so surely you could swap it for a removal spell that costs less money if you were looking from a value perspective, but it's a really good card to play if you have it. Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares, just great. Good removal. You can ironically use this on some of your own stuff in a pinch if you needed to gain some life and trigger other effects, so it's cute to have that as a very rare but possible option. It's Fairy's Protection, incredible card. Again, pricey. You could replace it with like Dawn's Truce if you wanted to. Something that's going to give you protection. Not going to be quite as good as this, but it'll still give you that flexibility. And then Vampiric Tutor is just another card that's... the tutors are so good, and they do make decks that maybe are a little bit weaker inherently be able to function a lot better just because of the consistency they offer. So it's up to you if you feel like that's worthwhile inclusion for your deck and budget. On to artifacts. Aether Flux Reservoir, just anytime you cast a spell, you gain a life for each spell you've cast this turn, and then you pay 50 life to deal 50 damage to a creature or player. It's basically a win con. You can, if you get high enough life, you can boom an opponent out of the game. Another card that probably won't stay on the board too long, but it's not bad. Obviously, can still offer you a lot of resources in the process. Arcane Signet, Soul Ring, Felwar Stone, all just good mana rocks. We got the boots. We definitely want our commander to be protected so she can get through and get the life gain off and whatnot and do commander damage, so those are important. And then Thought Vessel, there is a good bit of draw power in here. You want to be able to have some extra mana rocks, while also the option of, the maximum hand size is certainly a nice little added bonus. Enchantments, Animate Dead, very similar. I just think it's a really good card, especially because so many of the cards that are in this deck, like, they have effects when they die, you bring them back, you do all kinds of different triggers, especially with some of the higher cost stuff. There's just no reason not to maximize your cheap reanimate stuff, in my personal opinion. Authority of the Consuls definitely will not make you popular at your table. However, it does give you life gain whenever an opponent plays a creature, while also causing those creatures to enter tapped, so there's that. It's really good, obviously, and it can help you last longer, especially against like decks playing haste. Black market connections, good resources. A little pricey, but I don't think it's too bad. I think it's like $10 or so, and you can get this pretty much like get it going, and it'll be solid for you across the board. Cleric class just doubles your life gain and gives you the counters as well as acting as a reanimator, so there's that. Dazzling Theater and Prop Room is solid. Your creature spells have Convoke, which is kind of nice when you consider how many tokens you can make in the deck, but also untap your creatures during each of the player's untap step. Your commander is big, and if you can keep her untapped and active and able to block, you can maximize the amount of life you're gaining. So Exquisite Blood, probably the best card in the deck. It is very expensive, but I think it's mandatory. This card is part of so many instant win combos if you get it out. I do think if you are going to prioritize anything from a value perspective, I think this is probably the one to focus on first. Leyline of Hope, pretty cool. If you gain life, you gain that much +1. If you have 7 or more life than your starting total, your creatures get +2/+2. So this can buff the commander, can buff our other stuff too. And if our 1/1 vampire tokens are suddenly 3/3s and swinging for a lot of life gain, then we're in a good spot. March of the Canonized, nice to create some vampire tokens. And of course, if you have higher devotion than 7 to white or black, you can also create a vampire demon creature with flying. That one doesn't have lifelink, but still, I think the primary benefit of this is just getting its first effect off, but it's not bad to have the option to make some extra tokens too. Sanguine Bond we kind of touched on. Shelter by Ghost I like as removal. I think it's pretty solid, especially because it gives you ward, so it can help with that, plus lifelink. A good card, a little pricey again because it's seeing so much play in standard, but not anything crazy, and if you open Foundations, you probably have that too. And finally, for the lands, as always, I just try to go for the best lands possible. I didn't include Ancient Tomb in here, I even though thematically it fits the vampire theme quite well. But, we've got the fetch lands we could play, we've got some basic lands, we've got a couple of other things. Well, they're in Estate, we're playing a lot of vampire, so this card actually is fine in here. In terms of, being a more flexible color option, and we can get blood tokens for hand fixing later if we don't, you know, have any plays to make that turn necessarily. Then you got cards like Rogue's Passage that can allow your commander to be unblockable, so you're definitely going to get through and then gain the life. Overall, it's really fun with my experience with it so far. I do think there's more tweaks to be made, but generally speaking, the purpose of these videos is not to tell you the perfect way to build a deck, but rather to give you a framework, and then you can take that and go build your own deck with what you think works best. So, with that, I want to wish everyone a happy holiday. If you guys are watching this, if you celebrate, happy Thanksgiving. If you don't, I hope you still have a wonderful day and weekend. Let me know what you guys think of the deck in the video, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.